Yeah, yesterday was the Rule 5 draft, and by way of refresher, there have been some notable Rule 5 drafts to qualify and play in an all-star game. Jose Bautista, George Bell, Bobby Bo.
Like the homeboy said back home, we just chilling.
We just chilling, yeah. And then some more recent players, including some pitchers like Joakim Soria on the right-hand side of your screen. Jim Callis covers this event as well as the rest of minor league baseball more thoroughly than most humans, and Jim joins us on a Friday. Jim, good morning. And I guess for the unindoctrinated who is still unsure as to what exactly the Rule 5 draft is, let's begin the conversation with the definition.
Sure. It's a quick primer. It's been around for almost 100 years, actually over 100 years. It's changed purposes over the years, but it's basically around to give a little bit of freedom to players not protected on 40-man rosters. If you sign when you're 18 years old, you have to be protected after 5 seasons. If you sign when you're 19 or older, you have to be protected after 4 seasons. If you get picked in the Rule 5 draft, you don't just become property of your new team. You actually have to stay on their active roster the entire next season. If that team wants to send you to the minors, they have to get you through waivers and then offer you back to your original club for $50,000. So it becomes a little bit of a strategy sometimes where you don't protect the guy who you like, but you figure he's not going to stick with the big league club. And when we look back, there were 18 guys picked yesterday. In a typical year, maybe a third of them at most will stick with their new teams. So we'll see who sticks in 2021.
Yeah, it's actually quite a benefit for the player, too, because it used to be just, and it may still be, you're going straight to the big leagues. That's a cool thing to know that.
Had to stay there the whole year.
That's a hefty price at $50,000 to give a guy back. Who was your favorite Rule 5, Jim, through the years that you look back at now?
Since I've been covering it, probably the most interesting one was Josh Hamilton. Just because he was the #1 overall pick. He went through a lot of troubles with addiction. He'd been out of the game, and nobody really knew what he was going to become. I believe it was the Cubs who actually took him and sold him to the Reds as part of a pre-arranged deal, and then he had a great comeback story. So I think Josh Hamilton, and he probably, I'd say of all the years I've covered it, also generated the most buzz just at the time he was picked. Everybody in baseball was kind of buzzing. It was weird this year with the Rule 5. Usually it's the backdrop of everybody. That's the one event, the winter meetings, where everybody goes to with their roller bags, and then they all race to the airport afterward. It felt weird not looking around and seeing GMs standing around with luggage while we were doing the Rule 5 virtually yesterday.
No, and that's what I was going to ask you was that. But what about like all the other things that happen at a winter meeting where you get a chance to talk about prospects and things like that? How different has this winter been not having that winter meetings where everybody could connect?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's probably the thing I missed the most. It's the winter meetings is nice for me, Harold, because outside the Rule 5 draft, I'm not like John Paul Morosi or Ken Rosenthal or those guys where I have to chase down every rumor or every possible free agent signing or, hey, this trade might happen.
Things that are being discussed.
Not your turn, Kenny.
Exactly. So anyway, I don't have to do that. I just get to basically see people I maybe haven't seen in a few months, reconnect. It's a good time, for me. So I miss that. I mean, I've talked to people on the phone, obviously a lot of that this year, but it's not the same.
Let's talk about the Rule 5 draft as it went down yesterday and identify some of the potential hits here on this top 10 list. We've got a list of names built for you. Go where you want and tell us about some of these kids that got selected yesterday.
We got that full screen, Bill?
It's right here. Yep.
Okay, so #1 overall pick is Jose Soriano, who the Pirates took from the Angels. And he's interesting because he's up to 100 miles an hour with a fastball. He's got a power curve. He's got a changeup. It's crazy. I think 7 of the 18 players on this list had Tommy John surgery, including Jose Soriano, who had it in February. And that actually works to the Pirates' advantage a little bit because you can stash a Rule 5 guy on the injured list for part of the season. He just has to have, I think it's 90 days active time, and the rest of it can be spent on the injured list. But he's a potential starter, very athletic, needs to improve his control. The top position player on there, Akil Baddoo, was a second-round pick out of high school a couple years ago. Very athletic. He can run. He's got raw power. He can play center field. The Tigers took him from the Twins. It comes down to, if he makes enough contact. And My guy, my biggest pick to click on this list, I really like Brett Geus from the Dodgers, who went to the Rangers in the Rule 5 draft. Saw him in the Arizona Fall League last year. That's another thing I missed, the Arizona Fall League. And this is a guy who Dodgers player development just really helped develop his pitches. He was up to 98 miles an hour, power curve, power breaking ball. Ended 2019 with 23 straight scoreless innings. I think he's a guy who I can really see making an impact on that Rangers bullpen. Relievers, probably the easiest guys to keep in the Rule 5 draft, just because there's so many roles on a pitching staff. It's easier to get those guys some playing time. And
this is a high-end all-star pitcher.
Looks like he could be. He could turn into exactly that.
I won't put him in the All-Star game yet, but he's really impressive. I mean, this is a guy who, if you told me he was going to pitch in a setup role, I'll give you that. We'll let him pitch a little bit more before we put him in the All-Star game. But I do like him.
Hey, Harold made a point during our meeting this morning at 5 a.m. that I think is worth reiterating here. Jose Soriano, the first pick in the Rule 5 draft, Pirates, who is perhaps the most accomplished player ever that was taken in the Rule 5
Roberto
draft.
Clemente.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's a Rule 5 guy.
Yep.
And when you're the Pirates, the Rule 5 draft becomes a very valuable resource to try to rebuild because, let's face it, there's some work that is needed to do there, and they're in the process of doing that work via the Rule 5 draft and other things. Jim Callis joining us on a Friday. Jim, we appreciate the time, man. Have a happy holiday season if we don't speak to you before that.
Yeah, you guys too. Take care.